Do you struggle with trying to play with a straight bow? Do you have trouble when you're going out to the tip that your bow slides out? Well, I'm going to show you how to fix that. I'm Dr. Valissa Wilworth, and this is Violin Wise. So the first question is, why do we need to play with a straight bow? Well, obviously we don't want the bow sliding around, but from a sound perspective, we want to be playing with the bow perpendicular to the string, because that is how we're going to get the deepest, clearest sound that has the quickest response. And if we're playing on an angle, it takes more effort to hold it there. And every time the bow is sliding, it is compensating the sound. So we want to play with the bow perpendicular to the string. So now, why is it that for some of us, when you bow, your bow is sliding out? It's hard to keep it straight. Well, that's because of some very fundamental biomechanical things that you're doing with your arm. So the first thing that people do when their bow isn't tracking straight or it's sliding is that typically it's because they're using their shoulder as a hinge and not opening and closing the elbow for the hinge. So that is using the shoulder in a way that is not really what its main function for the bow should be. So the upper arm, the shoulder to the upper arm, is for support, to keep the weight off of the bow when you want it, or sinking into the bow if necessary. But it is a support function, and it's also guiding the level of where you're playing, whether you're on the G string or the E string or somewhere in between. The elbow is where the hinge needs to be happening. So if you're doing this with the shoulder, your bow is going to go crooked, and it's also going to be sliding out the more you go out on the bow. So you want to keep the shoulder a little more stationary and the upper arm at the height that you need for the string level that you're on. Use the elbow as the hinge. Now, that in and of itself is not going to completely solve it though, because if you use the elbow as the hinge only, your arm naturally tracks in an arc. So if I use my upper arm to support and my elbow as the hinge, that's what happens. So I'm still sliding out. So we don't want that. So there's something else that has to happen to keep the bow tracking straight, because your body is designed in spirals. It likes circles. It doesn't like straight. So any motion that you make, it is not technically a straight line physiologically, biomechanically. So I have to do something else in addition to the hinge on the elbow in order to get that straight bow. And there's two things that need to happen there. One above the elbow, one below the elbow. So the elbow is opening as the hinge. That's the starting place. But if I just leave the upper arm stationary, I get that arc. But as I track down on the bow, if I allow my upper arm to move toward the left, I will be tracking straight. Let me show you on the violin. So if I just open the elbow, that's what I get. If I don't move the upper arm, but if I use the upper arm in conjunction going to my left, now I've just tracked straight. So I'm using the elbow as the hinge, but once I get past the right angle, my upper arm needs to come slightly toward my left hand. So I'm doing this. So you can also think of it another way. When I track out, once I get to the right angle on my arm, my elbow needs to go to the left. You can think of it that way. It's the same thing. It's just a matter of how your mind likes to think of it. So you can think of it as either your upper arm moving toward the left, or you can think of it as the elbow moving to the left. Either way, you're going to get the same action in the arm. It's just a matter of how you like to think of it. But I did say that there were two things that needed to happen with the elbow hinge. That was the upper arm was the first part, and I said that there was something below it, and that is what you may have noticed, what my wrist has to be doing. Because I can also still be hinging from the elbow, moving my upper arm to the left, but if I'm not also flexing my wrist a bit, that's going to take it back into that arc. So I'll show you what I mean. So I get to the right angle, hinging from the elbow. Now both my upper arm and my wrist need to move in conjunction, where my wrist is, this is technically an extension of the wrist. Now you're not going to go real deep into that because you don't want to strain the connective tissue in your wrist, but you do need to compensate in order to keep it straight. Because if you don't and you do this, look what my wrist just did. I still go to the left with the arm and the elbow, but if my wrist doesn't compensate, I still get that arc. So there's three things that need to be happening in order to get your straight bow. Number one is that hinging from the elbow. That's usually the biggest place where people go awry with that, is that they're trying to hinge from the shoulder. That comes from actually trying to control the bow through a little more force, and if you're a little stiff. So you need to be more fluid with all of the joints of your arm. So hinging from the elbow, and then bringing the elbow more in front of you on the down bow, and then moving it out of the way on the up bow. So it's doing this, and then also compensating a bit for the wrist. So when I do that, I get a straight bow. Right? So the reason your bow is arcing out is because you're using your body exactly as it was designed, which is in arcs and spirals. So we have to compensate for that in order to create the straight bow, again, by the elbow, the upper arm, and the wrist. So give this a try. Try just some open strings. Give it a try. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. Let me know how it works for you and if you'd like a little more guidance on it. Best of luck. I'm Dr. Wilworth, and this is Violin Wise.